You probably use them every day, on your shirt, coat, or jeans, but rarely give them a second thought. We're talking about buttons, one of the smallest inventions with one of the biggest impacts on fashion and function. Today we're diving into 20 surprising facts about buttons, where they came from, how they evolved, and why they're more than just fasteners. The oldest buttons are over 5,000 years old. Buttons made of seashell were discovered in the Indus Valley civilization, dating back to around 2800 BCE. These early buttons were decorative, not functional. Buttons weren't originally used to fasten clothes. In ancient times, buttons were status symbols and ornaments, often made of precious metals or carved stones. The buttonhole came much later. People wore buttons for thousands of years before the buttonhole was invented in the 13th century. That's when buttons became practical fasteners. Medieval buttons were a sign of wealth. In the Middle Ages, buttons were luxury items found on the garments of nobility. The more buttons, the higher your status. Military uniforms standardized button use. In the 1700s and 1800s, military uniforms used rows of buttons for function and flair, influencing civilian fashion. Napoleon's buttons and nose, wiping myth. A popular myth says Napoleon added buttons to sleeves to stop soldiers from wiping their noses on their coats, but it's likely just a fashion shift. Button placement differs by gender. Men's shirts have buttons on the right, women's on the left. One theory is that wealthy women were dressed by servants, who found left-sided buttons easier. Buttons were made from all kinds of materials, from wood, bone, ivory, and horn to glass, shell, and plastic. Buttons have been crafted from whatever materials were available and fashionable. Buttons helped the plastics industry take off. In the early 1900s, the growing demand for buttons led to the development of early plastics like Bakelite, making mass production cheaper. Button collecting is a real hobby. Buttonology is a niche but passionate field. Some collectors pay thousands for rare antique buttons made of gold, porcelain, or even uranium glass. The largest button in the world is in South Carolina. A giant decorative button, 15 feet wide, sits in Columbia, SC, celebrating the local textile industry. Zippers and Velcro nearly replaced buttons. While modern fasteners became common in the 20th century, buttons held their own for style, durability, and tradition. Buttons are still custom-made for designers. Luxury fashion brands often commission exclusive button designs to match a season's look, making each piece unique. Some buttons hide secret functions. In spy history, buttons have concealed compasses, microphones, and cyanide pills, proving their usefulness goes beyond clothing. Buttons are used in military ranks and honors. Uniform buttons often display regimental insignias, dates, and crests, adding identity and prestige to military dress. Buttons are often the most durable part of clothing. In archaeological digs, buttons are among the last surviving clothing parts, helping date historical finds. The phrase "buttoned up" has military roots. Buttoned up originally meant a soldier's uniform was properly fastened, later evolving to mean organized and well-prepared. Hot buttons has a psychological origin. The phrase "pushing someone's buttons" comes from machine control panels, but quickly became a metaphor for emotional triggers. Sewing on a button is a survival skill. In survival training, knowing how to sew a button is considered an essential life skill, practical and empowering. Buttons might outlast all fasteners. Despite new tech, buttons remain popular for their simplicity, style, and centuries of trusted use. From ancient adornments to everyday essentials, buttons are a reminder that the smallest details often carry the most history. So the next time you fasten a coat or lose a shirt button, take a second to appreciate this tiny tool that's held us together for millennia. Want more fascinating stories about ordinary objects with extraordinary histories? Subscribe for more, and don't miss what's coming next.